All right. Well, this is in Florida this time. I'm recording a race in Florida. This is the Great American Road Race Omnium. This is the final few miles of the road race. Kind of a, I don't know, maybe 4 turns, but it was like a big, wide open, couple little rollers. I don't even know if I would call them climbs, but really fun course though. Good pavement. Very windy. This was the headwind section here going into the finish. There's a 8-man break. There's a 6-man break up the road, and then a 2-man chase group. Which, long story short, I was in the break, and then a small break went up the road of 4 from us. There was like 12 of us, and my teammate Bart attacked to go across to the 4, and I let him go. So I stayed with the other guys, hoping that they'd either bring them back or Bart would just get away. Earlier in the day, we did the time trial, and I got 5th place. So I was sitting in 5th place for Omnium, but you know, you get points for 40 points for winning. So I wanted to win the road race, of course, but Bart had gotten 8th in the time trial. So had he won the road race, he'd be way up in the standings as well. So, and he's a very good sprinter. So I kind of felt pretty confident. He's been riding really strong, that he would do really well. So anyways, so long story short, Bart didn't make it across. The 2 Florida Velo guys that were on his wheel jumped him, and he got left in no man's land. So I am bridging up to a small group that's trying to break away at the finish. So we're actually sprinting for 9th place at this point. There's quite a few of the Florida Velo guys in this race, and they attacked and attacked and attacked until they got their group off, and Bart got caught in no man's land. So we both went back to the field, and we're hoping that the field would chase and catch, but unfortunately they were too far behind. I think the lead group ended up 4 minutes ahead at the finish because the group behind was just crawling. I mean, this last lap, we probably averaged 20 miles an hour, if that. So we're getting towards the last mile here, it looks like. I'm just kind of rotating through just to keep everybody moving. And I have no idea who is a sprinter here and who's not. I just know that there's one guy in this group that finished ahead of me on the time trial, and I just didn't want to let him break away. So that's Guy Preston. This team in front of me in the white, they had a lot of guys in the field too, but they missed the break. Strangely enough, they didn't do a whole lot of chasing, but you know, hey, whatever, what are you going to do? So I'm going to try to win the pack sprint, and what's going to happen is when I lead the sprint out and I drop my chain and pull out of my left pedal, and I have DI2 shifting, and so when I sit down, I have to sit down and try to get my chain back on and get back, clip back in, and then I still have to try to sprint. So that's what you're going to see happening. And this whole race for me was just one calamity after another, but I still managed to finish 8th place overall. So I really wanted to do well in the crit tomorrow, which is the day after this one, and so if I get 9th place and win the sprint, that gives me some pretty decent points, along with my time trial finish, a good placing in the crit. So there's a pretty hard attack, so I've got to go with this. A good placing in the Criterium, and it moves me way up in the Omnium. I ended up in 4th overall after today, so I just needed to do a good placing in the Criterium, and then I would be sitting pretty good for the finish, for the overall Omnium points. Nobody really wants to lead out the sprint because it's super windy, so it's just little digs and little attacks, people trying to get a little bit of a gap hopefully they can try to solo in, but everybody's all over it. So I kind of just wanted to stay. The road's going to dip down through a bridge and then it climbs up to the finish. I think it's like a, I want to say like maybe a 2 or 3% grade. Nothing too drastic, but and you get a little bit of momentum kick from this little dip going down through the bridge. So if you time it right, you can get a lot of momentum going up the hill to the finish and just hold it off. It was pretty warm. It was probably mid-80s with a lot of humidity. So I was having a little bit of cramping issues in the last lap, but they had kind of gone away by this point, so I actually felt pretty good. A little bit of a grade here, nothing much, but at the end of a race, everything, you feel everything. And the guys, pretty much the guys that were left in this field were all pretty tired too. Nobody had a whole lot of snap to break away. That's Darren Williams. He is a guest rider with us. We had thought there was a team Omnium, but it was only for the P12s. So Darren's kitted up with us, and he did a lot of work for me in this race. Helped bring a lot of brakes back, stitch things up, and so he kind of starts a little bit of a lead out, and now we're starting the sprint. We just went through the bridge, so I go by everybody, and I have a pretty good gap, and I'm thinking I got this, and then bam, pull out of my pedal, chain comes off, so I'm sitting, trying to get it back in. Everybody passes me. All right, so now I get my chain back on. I'm clipped back in, so I'm gonna salmon my way through here, and I somehow managed to squeeze by. I can't go over the yellow line because there's a moto ref behind us, so I sneak by everybody and then squeak out the pack sprint and get 9th place in the road race. So I'm going to keep this video rolling because we are going to roll right into the Criterium, which is the next day. All these races are near Jacksonville area in Clay County. Bart pulled out because he had some mechanical issues, so he didn't even finish the road race, so he was out of it as far as Omnium points. I don't know why I didn't turn my video off. Okay, here we are at the Crit. Kind of a technical course. Curves, turns. A little bit of an uphill grade in a few different spots, just enough to make it sting and give people places to try to break away. There's this guy next to Bart. That's my teammate Bart in front of me. There's a guy next to him. His name was I think his name was Greg. Greg or Jeff? I forget. I think his name was Jeff. But he was a giant specimen of a man. I told him before the race, I said, "Are you sure you're not one of the Jacksonville Jaguar linebackers?" Because yeah, he was huge. But he was very smart, and I should have been watching him because every major move he was in it. And he also was a really good draft because he's a huge man. So I was kind of, when you're racing in a strange place, you don't know anybody. You kind of look for somebody that looks like they know what they're doing, and he was definitely one of those guys. Florida Velo definitely had the numbers, and they did a duo attack where they were sending off riders in twos, and every time we would catch them, we would bring them back, they would send off another one. We would bring them back, they would send off 2 more, and that's kind of the tactic. So there's Big Jeff. He's going after a break, or he's going after a move right there. I have pretty much been closing gaps the whole race, so I'm still doing okay fitness-wise. So I just didn't waste a lot of energy attacking across. I would just slowly bring things back because this is a little downhill here, and you can tell by my watts I'm just cruising. And there's a little bit of a sweeping right turn, and this is the fastest part of the course. You can carry a lot of speed through here, but you can't carry too much speed because it was still pretty technical. And then this was a really sharp left-hand turn that was really narrow. Went into a wide little part of the parking lot here, and then turned left into a pretty narrow little stretch here. And then it kind of swept around to the right up to the really scary turn. The worst turn of the whole race was we kind of sweep around to the left and then sweep around to the right. And then we have our right-hand turn that goes into a road that we're sharing with traffic. So they have hay bales set up to keep us from going into the traffic and keep the traffic from going into us. And there was a police officer there also to let people know that there was an event going on. So this is an uphill little drag. There's Bart, my teammate. There's the Florida Velo guys just marking Bart constantly. There's a two-man break that is up the road with Big Jeff and I believe it was one of the Florida Velo guys. The guy that won the road race the day before, Pena. So they were up the road, but we could still see them, and we were just trying to keep them close. And I knew that on Bell Lap it was going to be full gas, and that there would be a good chance that we could catch them and bridge across to them. So that's kind of what we were doing. Because I knew that if we chased them down immediately, there was going to be a counterattack. So we were just kind of trying to time it to where we would bring them back in the last stretch here and then be able to catch them in the sprint, because this was a little bit of an uphill sprint here too. Well, Bart and I just kind of monitored the front, and Darren Williams also did a lot of work just to keep things stitched up. At one point he just went to the front and we just had him ride tempo just to keep us close. I have to say it was a lot of fun. Florida Velo guys raced a really good race. I mean, they dominated both the road race and the Criterium, and there wasn't a whole lot we could do. You know, I thought we were going to get them in the crit, but you can see in the finish that it just didn't quite work out our way. But you know, that's racing, and it wasn't anybody's fault. It was just one of those racing incidents that happens. The guy that's leading the race is from South Carolina. His name is Mike. Big giant dude. He had just flatted a couple laps prior, so he's going to get a free lap after putting on a wheel. They put him in with 5 laps to go, and all he really needs to do is finish in the top 10, get enough points. He's had enough of a cushion to where he was going to be able to stay away, hold his lead in the Omnium, and he ends up winning the overall. But had he not placed well and I won the race, who knows, man, it might have been different, but that's just not the way it worked out. You could see the camper there. See, that's why the hay bales were there, because of the traffic. So it just gave us a little bit of a buffer to let us know that we can't go out into that lane, and to let cars know that they can't come into our lane. So we're kind of crawling right here, coming into the last few laps. You can see the Florida Velo guys are all kind of amassing up the front. So I kind of thought maybe they might do a lead out, but they can't go too fast because there are guys up the front, up the road in the break. So we're just kind of trying to nurse his lead, but yet still do a lead out and try to get some Omnium points. So, but Bart and I knew that if it came down to the last lap, we just know how to find each other. I'm just going to stay near Bart at this point because we're We're coming. I believe this is the last lap, so Bart's going to light it up here pretty soon. No, we're coming into Bell Lap, so this is a lap and a half to go, and you can still see the breakaway. You probably can't see it on the video, but we could see them. They were just starting to dick around with each other and play around, so you know, they were playing games. So I was thinking, well, if we light it up for one lap full gas, we could bring them back and catch them right before the last corner, and then it'll be sprint, game on. Darren had been pulling tempo right there, so he's done with his pull, and now Florida Vela takes over. So they're just riding a hard, steady tempo. Bart's moving up. Yeah, this is going into Bell Lap. So I just want to move up on the side here and get us a little bit closer to the front, not get caught out. Nice slot in right here. This is a pretty good spot because this guy's a taller dude, so I like to get right behind him. I'd get right behind Bart, but I didn't want to have to fight for any wheels since this one just kind of opened up. It's a long course. I have plenty of time to move up. So here we're going into Bell Lap. Feeling pretty good. I have good legs. Top View Sports puts on good races. They also put on the Georgia race, so we know the promoter. He puts on some really good races. We had a lot of fun. This was just a blast. I almost wish I could just do a do-over because it ended too quick. So now we're all done racing for 2020. Probably won't be racing again until 2021 if we're lucky. All right, so this is the one last tricky corner on the backside of the course. And then there's one other corner that I was worried about, and that's that one going into traffic. So we make it through this safely, nobody wads it up. And Bart's looking, he knows I'm behind him, so he's gonna light it up as soon as we go around to the right here up to the final 2 turns. And then Corey McCracken. Corey is an old racer that we used to race against in California. He used to light it up in the Pro 1-2 field circuit back in the day in the 90s. He's going to jump hard on the right, and both Bart and I anticipate it. We were half expecting Florida Vela to jump, but it ended up being Corey. And so Corey jumps hard right here. Bart gets on his wheel. I'm on Bart's wheel. This is perfect. Just got to get through this turn. And Corey unclips and hits the hay bale. And I have nowhere to go. His bike takes me out, and I land on the sidewalk. So anyways, that's race over. Live to fight another day.